Hello, everyone. My name is Keely Denenberg. I'm a Senior VP of Client Solutions at Orange Grove Consulting. And today I'm joined by Kelly Watson, Managing Partner of Orange Grove Consulting. And we're just going to take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about our inclusion assessment and specifically a couple of the one category, two overlapping categories related to the assessment. We look at inclusion from a qualitative and quantitative lens. And Kelly is going to talk a little bit about talent pipeline and pay equity today. Kelly, do you want to share why that is important for an organization to analyze?
Yes. Obviously, it's important to make sure that not just hiring a representative number of women and people of color and moving them through the pipeline. That is very, very important. But we also want to make sure that they have the same opportunities, they're moving at the same rate, and that they have equity in terms of compensation. Because pay equity, let's face it, is the real measure of whether or not there is equity in the workplace. So I wanted to share something that that is a representative example of what we look at when we're looking at our scorecard, our inclusion scorecard. And this is just one level of the types of information we're looking at.
And I also want to add that it's really important, the experience level of someone looking at the data, because you may look at this as an unexperienced person and think, oh, this looks pretty good. But what matters is the subtleties that people are seeing in the data. And I think, Kelly, you'll probably give some examples of that.
Yes, thank you. So this is some client data that shows the distribution of men and women throughout all the levels of the organization, from entry level all the way to chief executive. And you'll notice that the entry level, for example, which is in this particular case only a few cases, so it's 100% male. But for the most part, you're seeing that there are women, majority women at the beginning of the pipeline. And then as you move up, what happens, and I'd like to draw this little line because it kind of shows that the women, that the upper levels of the organization are dominated predominantly by men. And this is not surprising because, in many cases, it's pretty typical for an organization that didn't start thinking about gender equity until relatively recently. And so they will argue that, well, the women just haven't had time to move up in the organization. They haven't, we just haven't had that traction long enough. Or, it's very common for some women to take career breaks and take time off, and that slows their career trajectory. And so therefore, you don't find as many moving up through the organization. And so you see that the chief executive level, which is the C-suite, is mostly men, and there's a small number of women there. Vice president level, it's a little bit better. And here you might even look and say, look, wow, this director level, 55% are women and 45% men. So, and that tends to be where the glass ceiling is in a lot of cases for women today, is that director level. And hopefully, we're encouraged when it looks like that we're breaking through. However, this is the level that raises a red flag. So we have this senior director role, and you'll notice that there are more women at the senior director role than there are men. Same with the senior manager role in the organization. And this is a place where there's a little bit of a subtle problem for us, because we've noticed that these half-step roles, and we call them the half-step, it's like we have women coming through the organization and they're maybe ready for vice president, or they're ready for the next promotion. And so they're getting the same number of promotions as men, but they have to take a half-step. And in fact, a lot of times when these half-steps were invented, they were invented with women in mind, that they just weren't right yet for leadership. And so, but they've outgrown their position they're in. So we need to do something. And we create the half step. And that's fine as long as everybody has to go through the half step. But what we have found when we interview and do this analysis in organizations, it is predominantly the women that have to take the half step. A lot of this has to do with our own subtle biases about leadership in general and about women's competencies, and also with women's own confidence in asking for the next level. I mean, I think you know, Keely, that HP did a study and found that women feel that they have to be 100% of a job before they will apply for it, 100% of the requirements, whereas men will apply at 60%. So this is all playing out here in these half step levels, and the half step doesn't make as much as the next level up. And so this is a place where pay inequity is happening. Something else I want to point out here is two other little half steps. We look at manager with direct reports and manager that has no reports. And here we have, again, a level that, unlike the manager with direct reports level and the technical manager with direct reports, which are predominantly men, the women are in these no report roles. And sometimes this is justified because, well, they took time off and or they wanted to work flexible hours. And so we couldn't give them direct reports because heaven knows nobody can manage if they're not in the office 24/7, right? So these little halves, this is another way to create a half step. And again, if it's 50-50 and we're pretty sure that men and women both have that half step to go through, then it would be equity. But in this case, this is a perfect example of where that doesn't appear to be happening. And so these are just some of the subtle little things that we look for when we start to comb through the data with a bit of an eye for this. There's another one, a little hint I'll give you, that we also find that even when women have direct reports, they tend to have fewer of them, which again is an excuse then why they're not ready for the next level when it comes promotion time, even though they're doing the exact same job. It's that they were given fewer direct reports. So, so these are just some things to watch out for.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. That was very informative. We'll be back again with more information on our assessment.